the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly, so let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Tuesday, February 27th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Provi in the media, the practical word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? And yes, I hope you guys enjoyed your Monday. It is already Tuesday, getting into the meat of the week. Don't forget also that we have Q&A Thursday, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. If you haven't yet, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is, "It is the history of the 1,000-year wedding banquet. I will repay you according to your deeds." Whew. So right now it is it's midnight here. Yeah, it's midnight. It's already Tuesday. So it's been I've been recording late for the last. Oh, actually no. Yesterday, when I was recording for yesterday's podcast, I did my part of the recording, but I was waiting for Eddie. I was out with Eddie the whole time, and we never got home until it's crazy as it sounds. Okay, so this is what happened yesterday. So we went to on Sunday. Sunday went to Sunday service. After that, he went to go have he is a national SS leader, so he went to have lunch with the SS and stuff. I went to go record my podcast, so I finished it super early. I finished everything by 2:30 around there. But of course, Mondays is 2G Talks. So what he did was he had to get everything done when he went home. But we went up to Gunting Highlands. And we went up to the Highlands, and that's it's about a 45-minute drive from the church we were at. But it was the last day of the last weekend of Chinese New Year. Saturday was the last day of Chinese New Year, but of course, if people are going on vacation, they'll stay until Sunday. Going up to the resort, it was like a breeze. 47 minutes, we got there, right? The problem was, on the way back, everyone's coming home from the resort. And man, we had this stretch of 14 kilometers, and it took 59 minutes for the 14-kilometer stretch, which isn't even halfway. And, we got home around 11:30 p.m., but of course, we decided to stop by McDonald's. We each got a Big Mac set, and then on top of it, a bucket of fried chicken. Yes, over here in Malaysia, fried chicken is in every place. Malaysians love fried chicken, I guess. So we get home around 12 something. I get home around 12:30. Then I shower up and everything else. Oh, you know what's even crazier? I got home and the fuse blew out for the water pump, so there's no water at the house I'm at. So since there's no water, I'm like, man, I can't shower. I can't do anything. I can't even brush my teeth. So I was kind of just waiting for Eddie until 1:30. And it was kind of man, he's going to take until 12:45 around there. And he's like, yeah, I'll get it to you in about 15-20 minutes. So I was like, okay. So I was waiting, and then finally everything turned back on around 12, close to 1 a.m., took a shower, got everything ready. I came back and still wasn't there. And he's like, oh, I sent the video. He actually made a highlight video of all the things he was doing here in Malaysia and stuff like that. So we're hoping to kind of get that up sometime this week before he leaves. And maybe he'll do some commentary stuff on that too. But I'm looking forward to that also. But yeah, we were definitely we've had a lot of fun here. But he was in the Airbnb he's at has really slow internet speeds. So we were waiting till 2:30, and we're it's still not there. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to record the audio instead. So he re-records a short audio, and that's the one I posted because I got everything done around 3-ish, right? So that was last night until 3-ish. Right now, it's midnight, right? So today I had because the night before I was up till 3 a.m. editing and getting all that stuff and uploading that for you guys for the Monday podcast. Like, I was gone in the morning. Then I picked them up at like 12. And then once again, we've been out until, 11:30. And then I got showered, everything else. And now I'm recording here at midnight. So, yeah, it's been pretty long. Pretty long. I'm ready to crash tonight too. Busy day, but it was fun. We went outlet shopping, because things are a little bit cheaper over here in Malaysia. But yeah, the traffic, so bad. But it was nice. And, we had a meal at McDonald's and stuff like that too. But it was fun. Yesterday when I was talking about gossip, I told you guys, right? I told you yesterday that the moment I said I only told you 10% of the gossip, I got 4 people texting me and half jokingly saying, hey, I want to hear the 90%. Just kidding. But then they're like, but I'm not really kidding, because if you really want to say it, you can say it. So, you can tell that a lot of the times they're like, oh, you don't have to say it, but they were like half joking and stuff too. Oh, but one thing I noticed, because I have 3 guys with me right now. Before there was 2 girls, right? Like these people that are traveling with me. And I see a stark difference between doing the sightseeing with female members and with male members. So let me give you an idea. So with guys, you know what we're doing most of the time? This is crazy as it sounds. We're eating most of the time. We're eating 4 to 5 times a day. And including in that is stopping at like a 7-Eleven, getting some snacks, getting some drinks. We're always doing this, right? And number 1 is we're eating so much. Number 2 is the guys notice different things, different details that I notice too. For instance, I took these guys to this the central area downtown in Kuala Lumpur. It's got 3 or 4 shopping malls. All the Malaysians know it's Pavilion, Lot 10, Star Hill. There's all these malls around there, things to look at. During that time, we spent about 2.5 hours in that area. And 40 minutes of that was eating, because we went to some street food place. And then another, it was 40 minutes was eating and taking pictures just for the sake of saying that they went there. But I would say they spent another 40 minutes at the bookstore. So think about this. 120 minutes is, 2 hours. We spent 80 minutes in the bookstore and eating. And the rest of it, they don't even look around at the shopping mall. They're like, oh, cool, took the pictures and we just left. Right? It's a very guy thing, where the girls is looking around, going into stores, the eating time. The girls, girls do eat too, and they spend time with that too. But they spent a ton of time in the bookstore, looking at books, new books on success or this or that, and just they're looking around. And this was the exact same thing that happened with the Baker family. With the Baker family too, it was like Daniel and his father David. They were the ones looking at the books and then, buying books and stuff. And the girls were just kind of like, oh, they have their little sister. She's so bored, right? But, it's the guys that are spending all the time in the bookstore, all the time buying books, looking at books too, and, a lot of time eating. But it's the same thing with the other guys I'm taking around right now. Oh, you know what? Something else is really interesting too, though? Not just the mall. There's one thing that I really, really noticed about the guys different than the girls is the guys notice the cars. Yeah, they notice because guys really, really like cars. They instantly notice the different cars in Malaysia. And they're like going, hey, what car is that? I've never seen that before. I'm like, oh, these two are the 2 Malaysian car brands, Perodua and Proton. And I'm just telling them about this, like, oh, cool. And then they instantly notice the different names of cars for brands that they know, like Toyota and Honda. They'll be like, oh, yeah. Oh, this is the same car as this, but it's called a Picante here, but it's called this over there in Korea. And girls won't notice anything about the cars. Actually, the one comment I heard the most is the girls are talking about the environment, oh my gosh, the sky is so beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's so blue. Look at the clouds. Everything is looking out into the nature and stuff like that. And they would always comment on the nature. Right? Guys are we're commenting about the cars. Guys are commenting about what can we eat next? What should we eat next? And that was a number one question is, are you guys hungry? You guys hungry? And the girls too, whenever we're going somewhere, they're asking about the view. Oh, I want to see somewhere with the view. Guys don't care. about the view. They're like, is the food good? Can we eat good food? And it's very, very interesting just seeing the difference where the guys are looking at the cars, the buildings, the architecture, books, electronics, right? Very, very different from what the girls are talking about there too. So when I was there, I was just like, yeah, it's so interesting. It really is. Because sometimes I feel like, I'll notice something, but I don't think the girls really care what I notice. Like, if I brought up like, hey guys, this is the Malaysian car, the Proton, right? The girls are not going to care, right? The girls are going to be like, oh, where are we going? Oh, is there a nice view? Oh, is there a waterfall? Oh, is this? The guys are just like, man, I like the city better, right? Like, it's very, very different. But yeah, I just find it fun looking at the difference because I'm just taking so many people out to sightseeing and stuff like that too. So I'm having, I'm here with Eddie. We're having good conversations too. And one of the things we talked about, interesting one, and I think it's something that we should think about for the future. And remember, guys, I'm not complaining about this. This is just something that's part of the growth process. But we're talking about full-time Providence people. And these full-time Providence people, how we see a lot of them in like my age group, around my age bracket, which is like late 30s to the 40s and such. They used to run full time, but now they stopped running Providence for one reason or another, and now they're like totally out of the spiritual place, right? Working full time, they have a family, they have a job, they have a career they're starting. Some people are going back to school, right? It's like the career building at like from the late 30s, they're doing career building. And it was really interesting because we're talking about like, wow, these people really, really ran hard. They were such a huge benefit to Providence and such, right? And the one thing we're talking about is a lot of times the hardest part, like I talked about myself too, is like one of the hardest parts is like the transition from going into full-time Providence, but all of a sudden going into making money and stuff. Like your mindset has to switch, right? And we were wondering like how many people would actually go back to running again. And I would say that in the older ages, you probably won't have much opportunities at that time too, right? And that made me think about the future of Providence. Right? Like, and I'm going to say probably it's going to be in the near future, but what we can do for full-timers that can help them to see a more hopeful future for running full-time as a career in their life, right? Because, I think one of the things that is really sad at one point is once you hit your late 30s or 40s, you get replaced, right? But late 30s and 40s is such a late time to start a career. Right? There's not many positions to get into. You have to start from the very bottom. And it's interesting because it's not something that you think about when you start full-time Providence. When you start full-time Providence, you're in your 20s, usually at campus time, like running full-time Providence, right? So when you're that young, all you care about is running for this history, but you don't think about the future much, right? So even like looking at myself now, I'm like going, wow, I should have been preparing somehow, some way, right, for my future. But, when you're young, you're very passionate and zealous, and you don't think a lot about the future, and you don't think about like, oh, when I'm in my 40s and I stop running Providence, what am I going to do next? I don't think about that, right? Imagine this. How many people, even in the world, if they were offered a job that you have to put your life on the line for, and it will last you, there's going to be a cutoff date, let's just say at the age of 40, late 30s to 40s, right? So let's say, and there's a cutoff date, and at that point, you can't work there anymore, and you have to find another job. Like, if you were offered a job like this, my question is, how many of you would actually take that job, right? That it was guaranteed to end around around 40. Guaranteed to end around 40, and from that point on, you get nothing, and you have to move on and find another job or do something else. And the answer would probably be no one would actually want that type of job because most people want to work until until 50, 55, until they have enough for retirement and stuff like that too. And if you spend your entire life, running for Providence, you're not educated. You're not getting experience in education, right? In the corporate or the world that you're working in. So, in most cases, people wouldn't take that type of job. Now, of course, the one thing different and the thing that I'm going to tell you guys right now is I have zero regrets for running Providence for 21 years. Zero. I have absolutely zero regrets. I cherish every time that I had when I was running full time. I'm not doing it now. I haven't been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years, right? End of 2019 is when I ended my head leading, right? 2020 from the very beginning, I went to Malaysia, stuff like that too. So when I look at this, it's very interesting because, you know, I put everything on the line because that's what I really, really wanted to do. But it's only now when I'm, you know, kind of in this later age and I'm thinking to myself like, oh, what do I do next? Right? When everything in the past was about fulfill God's will, make God's history happen. And I did, you know, and I ran for 21 years. And like I said, most people are not thinking about what their future is going to be at when they hit 40 after running full time. And then they have no positions left for you. We did it because we love this history. And most people, I think almost all people are not going to have any regrets. Right? And I think it's noble. I think it's fine. But I do think it's our job as a Providence nation together to help full-timers and leaders to have something to look forward to being valued. Now, what does that mean? Like, for instance, let me give you an example of what I think is a possibility. I'm not saying we should do this, but, you know, to make someone feel valued is if they put 20, 21 years or like 15, 20 years of leadership of their life, the prime of their life into it. Like, one thing you could do for them, and then remember, like I said, this is not what I think should actually happen. I'm just saying this is one of the possibilities, is like, for instance, getting a pension. Giving them a pension that after they retire, after like, say, you know, you give them like 20 years, if they do 20 years of service, they get like a stipend of this much money a month, right? Because imagine you give your entire life to run for this history. It's supposed to be the most important thing, the spiritual life, bringing salvation to people. So you're doing the most noble work there is. But I've known people who are a bit salty that after you gave your life to this history, then it's kind of like, okay, new generation's here, you're out. And then you're like 40-something years old, you're like, what the heck do I do next? And there's like nothing after, right? Sometimes people will feel like they're tossed aside. Like, oh, we've used you for what we needed, so now you're done. Let's move on to someone else, right? But, you know, I think that it's not something that we've really, really thought about, right? And that's why it's not like we're doing it on purpose, like we devalue people. It's just that we never thought about these people that were going to be running for 20 years and all of a sudden they have nothing, right? The feeling that you're being tossed aside or whatever it is. And I think that we can make it that much better, right? And like I said, let me give you an example. Right? Like, even if we could do just something very small, I think we can do something to give them strength and encourage them or give them some things to think about for the future so they don't feel like they're, you know, like just kind of tossed to the side. Like, example is, let's just say that we decide to give a pension plan. Let's just pretend. A pension is like after you retire, you get a certain amount of money per month kind of thing, right? People who serve for, let's just say, a minimum 15 years, whatever, right? Then in order to make it actually work or feel like there is a hope in the future, is if like people hear that, oh, we're thinking about doing a pension plan, but then, you know, what if nothing happens for the next 10 years? Then it's hopeless. But if they start making a plan and then they start collecting a fund for the pension. Like, for instance, let's just say, like, you know, today when people are working, they do have a pension plan and they put a percentage of their salary for the pension, right? So, you know, they could say that from now on, all full-timers will have to start putting in a certain amount of money for the fund, right? Say, like, what, 5% or something. I don't know what it is. And then, or the churches who have full-timers would give a percentage of tithe or a certain X amount of dollars for every full-timer they have in their church. Right? Or, you know, they would go into the world and get a 401k plan or an RS, retirement savings plan from the world for full-timers to start putting into, right? There's just so many ways to do it, but if there's no starting point to it, then people are just going to feel like, oh, it's all talk, right? But we do need ideas where we can say that we do appreciate our leaders and all the work that they've put in, because without them, many of us wouldn't even be here, right? Like, you know, another idea could be like paying medical insurance for the rest of their life. I don't know, right? There's just there's plenty of things that we can do. We just need to make sure that in the future, we actually start something for them. I understand for myself, my time is past. I was in the generation, all this stuff wasn't there, and I'm okay with it if I don't get anything, right? But, and I do know that, every country is a different size, right? And, different finances. So, a lot of countries cannot support this type of thing, right? It really depends, right? But, we need to find a way that in the future, we can make it a much more hopeful place for leaders. Because, think about this. Those who do think about their future, what if they don't see hope in leadership? Like, it doesn't lead or amount to anything. Then they think to themselves like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can really do this, right? So it's something where I do think that we have to start thinking about it so we don't have these like leaders that are kind of stuck, right? So, I think what if you're a leader that doesn't want to be a leader anymore, but then you've been doing it for so long that you don't want to go back, like you don't have a job to go to. Like, I don't want to work at Starbucks or something like that, right? And, because the only way they can earn a decent living, well, I don't know if it's decent, right? They can earn a living is through being a head leader or some type of full-time position. They are like kind of forced into it because there's nothing else that they can do, right? And I think it's something we do have to think carefully about, right? And I understand right now it is not possible, mainly because we are still in the process of growing. But in the future, I think it is something that we do need to think about, right? So I think that's something that we can think about. And if we have good leadership, they'll be able to really help each other, right? Help each other think about these things and maybe how to take care of these leaders for the future. And I think that's something that's going to be very, very beneficial. And it's a really, really good sign of how much we value these leaders in the future. Like some of these leaders that we've had in the past, they have families. And you can't imagine on the head leader's salary raising children with that head leader salary like 10, 15 years ago. It was basically a miracle that they can raise a family with that type of salary. So when I see this, I'm like so thankful that, wow, God, we've really grown a lot. It's time for us to mature even more. Since you've said we're a mature history now. Oh, there's one thing. Oh, you know what? I did a new poll. Okay, the brand new poll's coming out is what gift from God do you have? Okay, now, when I talk about gifts, I'm not talking about things like, oh, I have the gift of prayer, I have the gift of management, I have the gift of evangelism, because there are skills underneath that are the core why you're a good evangelist, why you're a good manager, why you are a good lecturer, and these things like this, right? So, because, and also when we think about spiritual gifts, I am going to talk about this a little bit more during the practical word study, but a lot of times people think only about spiritual gifts, but when we start reading the Bible, the gifts that the Bible talks about is not just spiritual. There are many other things that are there too, right? So I put these four main verses, four main gifts, and I got them from, I believe, Romans chapter 12, verse 8. Let me just do a double check here. Is it Romans chapter 12? Romans chapter, I think it is Romans 12, 8. Yeah, Romans chapter 12, verses 6 through 8, and it talks about the different gifts, okay? So the ones that I'm going to bring up are from the verse. One of the gifts is teaching, which is not just lecturing. It's not just preaching. It's teaching. It could be part of education too. The next one is leadership. The next one is encouragement. And the last one is hospitality. Right? So these are the four gifts that I put up. And I put a fifth option of an other, or you can comment on this too. And these are the gifts that are, I would say, more of the core gifts that stem into things that we do in life. Okay? So teaching, leadership, encouragement, hospitality. There is an other there also. But I would say, there's a difference between prayer, I would say, is not a gift. It is a muscle. Right? It's something that you can work out and get better at. Like same with lecturing, right? Like there's a bunch of things here, but I want to look at more of these core gifts. Okay, so take a look at that poll, right? It's teaching, leadership, encouragement, hospitality, and there's an other. So you can put other gifts that you think you might have, right? There's another one, mercy, I believe is another one there. But there's a bunch of them out there also. All right, so do take a look at that poll that's coming out. All right, today brand new song that just came out. I am super excited about this one. This song is from West Africa. Those of you guys know Pastor Joseph. He's over there in Sierra Leone, in West Africa. And, you know, they are evangelizing like crazy. And he's pioneering a church there. And the church has made this song. It's called Thanks Be to the Holy Trinity from the Sierra Leone Church in West Africa. It's got that African vibe. It's going to be awesome, guys. So I hope you guys enjoy this. This is, I'm not sure what to call this, but it's Sierra Leone Church with Thanks Be to the Holy Trinity.
Yeah. Providence is to represents Sierra Leone, West Africa.
On the mix.
Since the day that I met this history, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I know one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Since the day that I met this history, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I'm the one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. We give thanks and praise to the Holy Trinity and the one sent in this history of providence. We empty our thoughts and we receive only words that is stronger than the rod and sharper than the sword. In the fight is like a battle, like a lion in the jungle, not stopping at the middle, but we take it to the ending. The word that will make us fly like an eagle. We are overwhelmed with joy with our body, soul and spirit, cause it's true word of God that is giving us joy. Every night and day we are seeking the Lord. Moreover, taking action resembling the Lord and spreading it in the world. Since the day that I met this history, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I'm the one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Since the day that I met this history, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I'm the one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Is your history, is a history, Providence history, came to me like a mystery. Is your history, is a history, Providence history, came to me like a mystery. Since the day that I came to Providence, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my dreams come true. And the ones that I said the greatest condition for making everything new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. We just wanna say thank you, thank you. Since the day that I met this history, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I'm the one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
And what an amazing song. That is a Sierra Leone church over there with Pastor Joseph. And that is the song, Thanks Be to the Holy Trinity. I'm thankful and grateful that all you guys listen to this. If you guys have any comments, go right below. This is their first song. I hope to hear more and more songs from them too. Okay, so let's move into our let's go into our word study for today. And of course, every Tuesday we have the practical word study. And there's this one thing that I really want to talk about, and it's talking about skills. Like one of the things that Susie talked about in the message is you have skills that God has given you. And if you really want to know how great that skill is, you need to take action until the fullest. Like, that's the big thing. And for me, this is a very, very interesting concept that I think that all of us can put into action in any aspect of our life. It doesn't matter what department you're in. So one of the things I did talk about in the first segment is a lot of people kind of think that we kind of sometimes look at the word too narrowly. Like when we hear about, oh, the skills that God has given us, we think mainly spiritual things. And I do think that we shouldn't think too spiritually, not too spiritually, only spiritually. We need to think about all things when the message says we've been given gifts, right? And don't think just the spiritual things, right? And I'm not saying don't start only looking at physical gifts or physical things to do. I'm saying that we need to have that balance, know both physical and spiritual. But I know that a lot of time, especially because we're a spiritual history, we look mainly at the spiritual things. But there's always this need, because we're living in our bodies, that we need to have that balance and understanding of the role we have in this history. So spiritual gifts, we understand that, right? You know, it's a gift of like taking care of people, whether it's meeting people, evangelizing, lecturing, you know, preaching the word or prayer, education. There's a bunch of these types of gifts, right? And the interesting thing is my thoughts on these gifts, I don't really consider them like gifts. Right? So let me tell you, like some people say that, oh, you have the gift of lecturing the 30 lessons, right? But then what happens is then I've limited myself to just 30 lessons, only to that, right? Where when I think to myself is like prayer, lecturing, management, evangelism, they are all muscles that need to be worked on, and everyone can do it as long as we challenge ourselves in those areas, right? So my thing I want to tell you guys is like whatever it is like you want to do it to the fullest so you can figure out the gifts you have. Because even in lecturing, some people are very good at like storytelling. You can find your gift of storytelling. Another person will find their gift of making parables, like making analogies that just fit like there's so many different gifts that we have inside of lecturing, right? But if you want to figure out your gift, you have to put your all into it. Like, say if it's prayer, if you really want to like become a great prayer person or find your gift within prayer, I'd say take yourself to the limit. Try a 7-day, 14, 21, 40, 70-day, 110-day condition. Take yourself to the limit, challenge yourself to bring yourself to that limit. And this is when you're going to see what you're really capable of and the gifts that you've really been given. Now, the one that I focused on in my life was definitely lecturing. And lecturing, I'm going to tell you this right now, lecturing is something that everyone can do. It is not a skill that just happens. Lecturing is a muscle that needs to be developed, and you will never know how good of a lecturer you are until you actually really prepare and try it for months and months and even years, right? Like even for me, I was never a lecturer from the beginning. And that's why my first lecture, which was Peter and the Fish, I put days and days of efforts. And only people who were born in the 80s and 70s and before that were going to know when I say that I listened to many tapes, right? I listened to many cassette tapes, right, of people giving their lectures on Peter and the Fish. And I got 4 of those lectures together, put my points together, and I listened to these tapes, recordings of other lecturers, and taking the things that I really understood the best. And then I did a practice lecture in front of all the lecturers. And the interesting thing, one of the comments made was, they said, I've never heard Peter and the Fish taught this way. Right? That's what they said to me. And when I finally went to the newcomer, I really felt inspired. Like, I wasn't like a great lecturer. I was my first lecture, but I was so inspired. And it was such an amazing feeling that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. Now, here's the big thing. The thing I want to get into is like what the original proverb said is, it says, you will not know the skills that you've been given until you take action until the fullest. Right? So I put everything in. I was listening to other people's tapes, took a couple of days. I worked on it for so long. Now, here's the question. The question I give to you now is, what if I didn't prepare well for my lecture? What if I didn't listen to other lectures, but I just looked at the notes and that's all it was? What would my experience have been like? Would I have been so inspired? Or would I have, or would I probably had a really bad experience, maybe even traumatized, where I think to myself, maybe I shouldn't be a lecturer. Maybe I'm no good at lecturing. And I do think that sometimes we have bad experiences because we do not put everything into it, right? Just like that proverb says, it's like, hey, put your fullest, go do it to the fullest. And this is when you're really going to figure out what gifts God has given you. Right? And if you don't put everything, and I think one of the biggest issues people have is when we are doing things, we don't put everything into it. We don't go to our fullest. We do it halfway, right? And we have a bad experience. And then we think it's not our gift. And we think it doesn't fit us. And we think that God didn't create us for this type of thing. But in reality, we didn't put our all in. We didn't go all in. We never got a true experience of God showing us what, like a hint of what our gifts are, right? Because, I was talking about this before the first segment. What are the gifts of God, right? And they're much different than just the tongues and interpretations and prophecy and stuff like that. Those are the fruits of the Spirit that these are the gifts of God that we've heard about, right? However, the Bible also talks about other gifts. And in Romans chapter 12, verse 6 through 8, what kind of gifts does it say? It says, we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. Here we go. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Those are gifts too that we would never thought of. We don't think of these as like these spiritual gifts, but leadership, generosity, right? Mercy, encouragement, serving, teaching. These are different types of gifts. Think about generosity. When people have more, like financially, then what happens? Then we are able to be more generous if the Spirit leads us, right? Well, like one of the people that I listen to a lot for finance is Dave Ramsey. He's a Christian, and he's been bankrupt twice. But now he has like real estate worth like something on the lines of like $600 million or whatever it is, right? And he talks about, one of the gifts, one of the great things about making a lot of money is that we're able to be generous with it, right? He has that generous spirit, right? Generosity is actually a gift, right? And a lot of people try to stop generosity, but no, if it's a gift, it's a gift. Right? It's something that, who can stop the gift if the Spirit of God has given it to you, where you've prayed and you said, you know what? God has inspired me to do this for you. Who can deny what God has done? Maybe there's different methods and styles, right? For instance, if someone gives too generously, then some people can feel burdened by it, but you can still give it anonymously, right? You can still be generous where you don't take any credit because you don't want the credit. You're just trying to follow what the Spirit is leading you to do, right? And generosity happens in many different areas, not just in the spiritual realm inside the church, but in business, right? In your work area, in your school. There's so many ways you can be generous. Another one was that the Romans chapter 12 talks about is leadership. If it is to lead, then be a leader. Diligently be a leader. But it doesn't say only be a leader in church. But it could be also in business, in your community, in your work, in your school, in your family, right? Leadership is another gift that God has given to you that can be used in many different ways, not just inside church. And we also talked about encouragement and being merciful. These are all gifts, and they are not subject only to happening inside the church, but they can happen anywhere in any aspect of your life, right? Like think about this. Someone who's good at lecturing may not just be a good lecturer, but they can be a great teacher. And if they are, it means be a teacher in a school, be a teacher in a business, be a teacher in a church, be a teacher at home. There's many places that you can be a great teacher, the gift that God has given you. Remember, in a church, you're going to have 10% to 15% that are going to be running full time, right? You're not going to have the entire church running full time. So we need those teachers in all aspects of life, right? What about someone who has the gift of hospitality or encouragement, and they're just great at management and taking care of people? They're a good listener, which can be used not only in a church, but you can be a counselor. You could be a manager in a company. You could be like a CEO or any of these types of things too. There's so many different areas that it can be used, right? The gifts from God, they're not exclusive only to spiritual things or only to church. God has given us these gifts so that we can use them in every area. Remember, when Jesus said, be the light be the light on the hill. What does that mean? He says, hey, what's the point of having a light if you cover it up? Be the light in your workplace. Be the light in your schools. Be the light in your family. And there's just so many things that we can do to brighten up people's eyes. Let them see, show them that this is truly, truly God's history. Right? God's gifts, they range and they can be used in every area. Do not narrow it down to only being in church. We are here not to just be amazing in church. We're here to spread the gospel to the entire world. And if the world wants to see how great God is, do not hide that light that's on the hill. That light is there so everyone can see it. They can see God's light. They can see God shining in your life so that they too will come to this history also, right? So we can't think of things too narrowly, right? Don't think of it just a spiritual skill when it is totally not just a spiritual skill, because it can be used for spiritual things and physical things and other things like this too, right? It should be used in all areas, not just church, okay? So that was one of the big things that I want to talk about, especially when it comes to God's gifts, and that proverb that came from the message of, you will only know the skills, the gifts that God has given you. You won't know it until you take action until the fullest. And that is something I think that all of us really have to take into consideration. Okay? So that is the practical word study for today. I hope it's something that we can all really work on for this week in all that we do. Okay? And of course, we do have Provi the Media Next. Great article. Kind of sad too. Gives me mixed feelings. I talked about this a bit on Monday too, but before we get into that, let's get into the last break of the day.
Yeah, rise up to the challenge, armed with the word in action, belt to the truth, fasten, shield of faith in one hand, sword of the spirit I'm slaying, no mercy I'm praying. Everyone thinks I lost, but now I'm turning Super Saiyan. I gotta be new, gotta be great, I only gotta win this thing. Fix the mistakes, fix who I am, all I wanna do is change. Gotta be brave, gotta be tough, no more time for delaying. It's just training, all those times of pain, off, pushing my limits. Only God, I'm trying to be better, I'm trying to feel God. Enemies watching, they want you to fall, but you have to be better, you have to give it your all. Every day I make myself, but I know it's not easy. This is the life I chose and I know my spirit's breathing. The battle has only begun and I may take damage, but if I fall, I only know how to do one thing. Rise up to the challenge, armed with the word in action, belt to the truth, fasten, shield of faith in one hand, sword of the spirit I'm slaying, no mercy I'm praying. Everyone thinks I lost, but now I'm turning Super Saiyan. I'm Goku turning Super Saiyan, I'm charged up, now I'm playing. On the mount like Sinai, I connect with God like Wi-Fi. You see the word, always praying, spiritual path where I'm staying. Everyone thinks I lost, but I'm always with him, so you know I'm prevailing. Protected myself from Satan, armed with the truth, now my angels will shoot like. Now I'm at my truest form, I'm trying to really be the greatest. The power level can't contain it, my energy is never draining. Look how far we have made it, unlocking levels never hesitated. There's no try, you can just do it or don't, so fix your thoughts instead. Everybody makes mistakes, just gotta take notes, can afford to do it again. Life is so easy, if you just do what is right and just follow what's real. Victory comes through skill, gotta stay on course, time to kill. to rise and shine. Thinking of the past and never forget. God is Lord by your side. Hold your hand, dry your eyes. Trust in Lord every night and day. He'll never let you go, don't fall away. Be bold, be brave, and with all your heart. Love the Lord to the end of time. Rise up to the challenge, armed with the word in action. Held to the truth, fasten. Shield of faith in one hand. Sword of the spirit, I'm slaying. No mercy, I'm praying. Everyone thinks I lost, but I'm turned Super Saiyan.
Okay, so let's get into the final segment for today. And of course, this is Provi in the media. And we have this one article that a friend of mine referred me to, and I think it's something very, very important and something that it's very, very interesting to see. And it's sad, and it's, yeah, I have mixed feelings about this. But this is about the appeal for the 6 executives, right? The 6 executives, which includes KJS and like Kyla and stuff like that too, right? So here is the headline. The headline is, prosecutors seek 3 years in prison for a female CGM executive who confessed to Sunsteam's participation in sexual crimes in the second trial, which means this is talking directly about Kyla, right? So interestingly, the prosecutors are seeking 3 years in prison for her too. So here's what the article says. The prosecution requested 3 years in prison for a female CGM executive who admitted to all charges in the second trial after receiving a suspended prison sentence in the first trial on charges of participating in sexual crimes against female believers of CGM. On the 23rd, the First Criminal Division of the Daejeon High Court held the second appeal trial for 6 female executives, including, Kyla, who were indicted on charges of quasi-rape, aiding and abetting quasi-rape, and aiding and abetting forcible molestation. Now, on this day, the court made its decision first by separating only Miss A, a former director of the International Mission Bureau, which is Kyla, who admitted to all charges among the 6 defendants. So we're going to call her Miss A from now on. The prosecution said it's an advantageous situation that Ms. A is the only one of the defendants who confessed and was forgiven by the victims, and added, however, in the case of President Jung, the charges are serious, including actively making false statements from the investigative stage and taking charge of managing female believers while in the position of a director. He asked the court to sentence her to 3 years in prison. Previously, Ms. A was sentenced to 6 months in prison and 1 year of probation in the first trial on charges of aiding and abetting forced harassment in October last year. And Ms. A's lawyer said, although the defendant helped commit the crime, it was accidental participation and not active aiding and abetting. The court decided to proceed with sentencing Ms. A along with the other defendants. Now, at the trial on this day, the examination of witness B, I'm not sure who that it is, requested by the prosecution defense was scheduled, but Ms. B did not appear due to health reasons. It's known that Ms. B received a handwritten letter from Sunsteam, who was imprisoned in prison, and delivered it to the director of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The court said there is a report and statement prepared by the police and prosecutors regarding Ms. B, and decided, I believe it can replace the witness examination because it contains parts that are advantageous to the defendant. And accordingly, both sides withdrew their application as witnesses. The next trial will be held in the same court at 3:30 p.m. on the 6th of March. Meanwhile, Ms. A and others were put on trial on charges of actively participating in crimes, right? And so we know that this is going on right now. And Ms. Kim and others have denied most of the charges, saying he was not a person in power. She was not a person in power, but the first trial sentence, of course, KJS to 7 years in prison, saying that she did not simply stay at the scene of the crime, but participated directly in some of the crimes and took the lead in deifying Sunsteam, and sentenced the remaining defendant, which is KJS, to 7 years in prison. And of course, there was someone else who was 3 years, 6 months in prison. And it was all depending on the degree of participation, right? So, yeah. So among them, the execution of sentences for 2 people, including the confessed defendant, was postponed for 1 to 3 years, right? So there's 2 of them that did not end up not going to jail too, right? So Mr. Jung, or Sunsteam, was sentenced to 23 years in prison in his first trial, but is now going through its appeal trial right now. So this is very interesting, So why is it so interesting, and why is it something that's so it's something that when I first heard it, my mind was split, right? Because this is talking about Kyla, right? And she was the only one there who basically said, it all happened, it's real. And she's, she saw everything, and she admits that everything is guilty, she did wrong, right? And she got the lightest of all sentences. But now the prosecution is saying that no, we want her to have 3 years in jail, because not only did she, basically they said it was advantageous for her because no one else pleaded guilty except her, which makes her look really, really good. But then they're saying is like, but it's also a really bad crime. And since it's so bad, and not only did she confess to the crimes, but her confession also makes her a perjurer. Like, she committed perjury, making false statements in the first trial. So she's also committing perjury. So now they're asking that Kyla goes in for 3 years. Now, number one is, as people of this history, we do not agree with anyone being sentenced for this because it's not true. Like, we believe, we know, like, we believe and we know that Sunseem didn't do those things. So why should they go to jail if he didn't do it, right? So there's one thing that we believe is, like, we would rather have those 4 members, or those 3, like, there's 6. So 4 of them are in jail, 2 didn't go to jail. So 3 of our, like, members are in prison right now because of that, because of this sentencing. So we would prefer, like, even if it means KJS comes out of jail, we would still prefer that our members don't be in jail. And especially being accused, or especially going to jail and being found guilty for something that didn't even happen, right? So for us, we're like going, yeah, we would rather none of them go to jail, right? However, like, the reason my heart is split, because I have an emotional side that's like, oh, she deserves it, I hope she goes 3 years. Kind of just like, oh, how could she have done this with all the stuff that she did for this history, all the things that Sunseem did for her. Like, it makes me kind of like, oh, this is what you get for lying and doing this and this, in my head. But my heart is torn, because it's also like, no. Regardless of what she has done, number one is, we do not judge. And even when God judges, we are not the ones that should revel in God's judgment and say, God got you, that's what you get for not. We shouldn't be that at all. Right? It's kind of like what Sunseem said about David in this week's message. Yeah, they're persecuting, they're coming against you because they don't know. But you don't sin. Just don't sin. Be the good person so that Satan has nothing against you. And that's something that I really felt like, yeah, there's something that's so true, is our duty is to show God's love. And even if someone deserves it, we shouldn't be happy for someone being judged. We shouldn't be happy for someone, going through suffering and pain. We should always be those people that really love and empathize with these people, knowing that we make mistakes too, that we could have been in the same position. And I do think it's something, my heart was torn in the beginning, I shouldn't think these thoughts, but we have to really, really get our hearts and our minds to think very carefully and realize deeply of, the type of love we should be having for our brothers and sisters, regardless of what they've done to us, right? It's kind of like it's just the way that we should be loving people, right? And my heart was torn in the beginning, but as I thought about it more and more deeply, we should never revel in people's suffering, and we should always be those, like the verse said is, hey, vengeance is God. Like, God, vengeance is mine, God says, right? Let God do pay everyone according to their deeds. For us, we just need to love people. So, yeah, if I were to be super honest, I was in that, like, those thoughts, like, yeah, she deserves it kind of thing. But I can't think that way. Like, I don't want to think that way. I don't want to ever be in that position where I look terribly like I revel in someone's suffering. And I don't think that's a good way to live your life, right? I don't think it's a good way to really, like, the good heart to have as someone who's a person of God. Either way. So, yeah, that's why my heart was torn for a bit, but it took me some time to reason with myself and to understand more clearly, more spiritually too. Either way. So there it is, guys. That is today's Provi in the Media. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. And I hope it's something that we can, gives us more things to think about, pray about, not just pray about the situation, but just like I was torn about this topic, it makes me think more deeply about myself too. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is today's Tuesday podcast. Hope you guys super enjoyed it. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly, so let's realign. Just listen and fill your mind.